Oh wait, we gotta cut. Are we saying week? Like, what are we? What's up, everybody? We're back, week 3 of the Life His Way podcast here. Kind of second part of this week. We just finished up Is God Real? And now we're gonna go into how do I explain God to the unbeliever? How do I effectively share my thoughts about God to someone who doesn't necessarily have the same perspective and relationship with God that I do?
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking when I was going through that question, the first question of is God real? And a lot of the things that I had to say, I was like, man, this would be good if maybe we gave believers some tools
Yeah.
to share
Yeah.
on how to share with unbelievers about, God
Yeah.
and the validity of his existence, if you would. So, yeah, so how do we explain God to the unbeliever?
Yeah. It's a big question for sure.
It is.
Where to start? Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it becomes to us as believers over time, it becomes like we have this relationship with God that it's almost just natural and
yeah,
we just think of God as God. Like that's just
yeah.
someone we talk to every day or all day
Hmm.
and it's so natural. But to the unbeliever, a lot of times it sounds like a very far out
Yeah,
and completely ridiculous idea,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So I think it's breaking that barrier of first the kind of what we talked about in the first part of the validity of it, kind of the ways to think about it that where you're really like, well, this really isn't so crazy because of all these things around you,
yeah,
because of creation and those kind of things. Once you're able to break that barrier, then you can kind of get into a more relational aspect of it, I think.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that word relational,
Right.
you know. So one of the things that I say as of yesterday is that, don't debate, relate.
Yeah.
Don't debate,
Yeah.
relate. Here's a hot take for you.
Okay.
And maybe people will disagree with me on this,
Okay.
but I think I'm okay with that. I might not be. We'll see. But I get a little weary of like this whole I've got to prove my point and I have to prove my rightness, and I'm going to sit down and debate with you and prove why my perspective is better than your perspective. And I'm like, when did Jesus ever do that in the Gospels? I mean, you can look at this conversation with Nicodemus, and it was just that. It was a conversation.
Yeah.
I'm like, Jesus never sat down at the town square and said, prove me wrong. I'm like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
I think it just points back to pride. I think it points back to insecurities. I think it points to misplaced energy whenever we decide the way that I'm going to go about sharing my faith is by proving everybody else wrong. And I have all of this biblical knowledge. It doesn't mean anything to you because you're not Christian. I have all this biblical knowledge, and I'm going to prove why my way is better than your way. And I'm like, that's not the example that Jesus set for us. And in fact, 1 Peter 3:15 says it this way. He says, if someone asks you about your hope as a believer, always be ready to explain it. All right? Not debate it, not fight about it, but be ready to explain it.
Yeah.
And then he ends that statement with this, but do so with gentleness and respect.
Mm-hmm.
Gentleness and respect.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's our template right there. Yeah. When it comes to sharing your faith, Peter says, first, you need to be ready. So you need to have some knowledge. Yeah. I mean, you do need to have that. You need to have some knowledge, be ready to explain your faith. But while you're explaining your faith, you need to be gentle and you need to be respectful.
Yeah.
You gotta be gentle and you gotta be respectful.
Yeah. Because in what conversation are you ever, whether the topic is about faith and the Lord or not, if you're having differing views and you're not coming to that conversation in a respectful way, in an understanding way of someone else's experiences, and maybe they haven't grown up in the same way that you did. Maybe they don't have the same experiences or haven't had access to the same things. coming into that conversation with respect, understanding, gentleness, like you said, is it's going to make someone much more open to hearing what you have to say.
Yeah.
Right? If you're going at it with that kind of debate mindset of I'm right, you're wrong, people don't like to hear they're wrong.
That's very true.
So,
Yes.
you want to more redirect
Yeah.
their curiosity or their skepticism into what's worked for you. So I had that feeling as well. This worked for me when I was going through that feeling, right?
Yeah.
Those are good ways to,
Yeah.
I think, go about that conversation.
Yeah, very good ways. My other tool that I think that we have to think about is we have to start with questions, not lessons. And I think that goes back to the relational aspect, is that you'd be surprised what you can learn from anybody.
Okay.
There are some people that I have met that I'm like, there is nothing that I could possibly ever learn from you from any stretch of the imagination. And you know what? The Lord will humble me, and I'll be
All
like,
right.
man,
Yeah.
who would have thought? Who would have thought it? I learned something from this individual.
Sure.
And I think we got to go in with questions and not always go in with lessons of,
Yeah.
I'm trying to tell you something.
Mhm.
This is what you need to do. This is how you
Yeah.
need to think.
Yeah.
But you know what? Help me understand your perspective.
Yeah.
Help me understand how you got to the place that you're at right now, spiritually speaking. Help me understand your point of view. And here's some really good questions to ask. I think you get some really cool answers from, answers that you might not agree with, but still some answers that you're like, man, that might be different.
Yeah.
But now I can think about it from another perspective, and I can know how to minister to you better by knowing what your perspective is. I got 3 example questions. What do you think happens when we die? What do you think happens when we die? And be quiet and listen.
Mhm.
I think it's as simple as that, to hear what their response is. Whatever their response is, whether it's right or wrong, you're going to learn how you can minister to them more effectively whenever they answer a question like that. Another one is, do you believe in objective right and wrong? I think we talked about in the last conversation, is that there's some type of morality in all of us. And listening to them process that and what their understanding of right and wrong is, and hearing out their perspective, again, is going to give you tools on how to minister to them. We'll do one more.
Yeah.
Where do you think meaning comes from? That's a good one.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, we just, showed up here on earth one day, and, my mom liked my dad, and here I am.
Yeah.
Where does meaning come from for you? And to hear them process that and to answer that, again, and you may hear some things where you're like, man, that's a good point. But it gives you some tools on how can I reach them? How can I minister to them? How can I level in a conversation with them? Why? Because you're not trying to win, you're trying to understand. All right. And it takes time to build that relationship, especially people that you see regularly.
Yeah.
It's like, man, how can I understand you more? I'm not trying to win an argument. I'm not trying to prove my point. I want to understand you as a human being so I can serve you better.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, I think the aspect of trying to understand, right, and not trying to win, like when you're saying win, it's going to be more of a debate mindset, and that's not what we're trying to do, but trying to understand where someone else is coming from, but also understand what we believe better.
Yeah.
So when someone raises a question, right, there's no fault in not knowing everything.
Yeah.
That's completely fine. That conversation can even take a pause there, and you can come back, right, another day or later that day, and you can say, I was thinking about your question, or I was thinking about your perspective, and what do you think about this?
Yeah.
Right, and keep it going. You're not under some pressure that at all times you have to have every answer to someone's doubt.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
so yeah, you're gonna also through that situation, through that conversation, you're going to gain more knowledge for yourself too, and you're going to have a better understanding of what you believe in also. So I think it also prepares yourself in a better way through having those conversations and coming to those conversations not with the mindset of I already know it all.
Yeah.
Because none of us do.
None of us do.
Right? We don't. So you're gonna grow a lot yourself too.
Yeah. It sounds like humility.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
It sounds a lot like humility,
Yeah.
which Jesus is a fan of.
A big fan,
I would say. And then my third thought right here is keep it simple. You don't have to have a seminary degree to have a conversation.
Of course, I
All
love
right?
that one.
Yeah, keep it simple. Even statements like creation points to a creator, you know, that's a principle that we can hold on to.
Yeah.
Our conscience points to a moral design that has to have a designer. Jesus' life, death, burial, and resurrection are historical claims that demand a response.
Yeah.
You know, you have to have all the answers to it, but these are truths and things that we can say to get somebody thinking and to engage in that kind of conversation. How about this? I think we talked about this a second ago, that the Bible consistently reveals who God is and how the Bible consistently stays on track, even though there's many different authors, that all points to Jesus, that all points to the revelation of who God is.
Yeah.
Here's another one, that God desires to fulfill the void within all of us and to give abundant life. Because many people have a preconceived notion that if there is a God, that he's distant, that why would he care about me, or things like that, in that kind of perspective.
Yeah.
And I think helping people to understand and know that that void that's in your heart right now is God trying to reveal himself to you so that he can fill that void and give you some meaning and give you purpose.
And that void it's there, right? For everyone, there's that void, that thing that you feel that you're missing. And we just try to fill that void with different worldly things. But the only thing that can fill a spiritual void is going to be God.
Yeah.
It's the only thing. And that's why those things that they try to fill that void with, they never last. Yeah. Right? Because you can't fill a spiritual void with a physical thing. Yeah. But also I want to
drop. Let's go.
That actually wasn't planned or anything, but I like that. I also want to go back to when you said keep it simple, because like what is really our goal, right? And that's just to plant seeds. It's such a common phrase that we hear all the time. Plant seeds. What is planting a seed? Yeah. What really is that? Like, what is your responsibility in planting a seed? How does that practically look? Saying something just like creation points to a creator and that's it, that kind of plants a seed. Yeah. Someone's going to think about that again and say like, man, creation does kind of point to a creator, or see something and say, maybe something did create that. Yeah. And so that's a seed planted. You don't have to do anything crazy. Yeah. You can just say some simple thing like that, and that's planting a little seed.
Mm-hmm. Something can't come from nothing.
Right. Yeah.
Then I have one more here, is share your story, which we talked a lot about in the last conversation about how you shared your story, shared your testimony, and how powerful that is, how powerful that night was. And I think of the example in John chapter 9, where Jesus heals the blind man and the people are questioning him. And his statement is simple. I was blind, but now I see. So sharing what the Lord has done in your life. Like, I was broken, but now I'm healed. I was mentally distressed, but now I have peace. I was doing life my own way that led to destruction and led to selfishness and led to consequences that I didn't enjoy. And now God has turned my life around, and now I'm living in the freedom that God gives me. And I'm living my life on purpose. And I feel like I'm making a difference with the gifts and the skills that God has given me. Like, what's the story what's your God story? I guess is the question, that nobody can deny a transformed life. Nobody can deny a transformed life. I was broken and now I'm healed. I was this way and now I'm the person that God has called me to be. And my life isn't perfect. My life isn't easy, but my life has purpose and I'm better for it. Gosh.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, through so many of those testimonial stories, there's so many instances where even when you're telling someone who believes in coincidences, which I don't really believe in, um, but you're even telling someone who can just write things off to coincidence, where it's like, I know for sure in my own personal story, where it just gets to a point where you say, okay, no more, that can't be coincidental.
Yeah.
That one went too far. And so I think there's so many aspects to that of everyone's story where it's not coincidence, it's divine intervention, and those things can be really powerful to someone that's searching.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, here's the encouragement to all of us is that you don't convert people and you don't win people. The Holy Spirit does that. That's the work of the Holy Spirit. That's God's work. John 16, verse 8 says, the Spirit convicts the world. So I'm not converting people. I'm not making somebody become a Christian. Like, that's what God does. And he chooses to use us in that process and what he wants to do. Our role is to be faithful. Right?
Yep.
Our role is to be faithful, and God's role is revelation. All right. So God reveals himself and we're faithful to share. And as we plant seeds, somebody comes along and waters that seed, and then the Holy Spirit brings it to life. And who knows what God is going to do in someone's life, because we were faithful to do what he's asked all of us as believers to do, which is to go and make disciples, to go and tell people about Jesus, to tell the gospel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. You don't save people, God does.
Yeah.
You don't even have the ability to save someone.
Yeah.
Right? The flesh, no one's flesh is capable of genuine spiritual life. I think we spoke about that last week a little bit.
It's the work of Jesus.
Yeah, it is only the power of the Holy Spirit through the words of Jesus.
Yeah.
That takes all the pressure off of yourself. All you have to do is say a simple line to plant a seed, and the rest the Holy Spirit will do. Another thing you can do is you can continuously pray. Right? There's so much power in prayer. You can plant that seed, and then you can go back to your own personal space, and you can just get into prayer, constant prayer about that person or that seed that you planted, and really give it some attention, and the Holy Spirit will do the rest.
Yeah. Can I give you one more passage to look up? It's in Romans still, if you're still there. Romans 10, verses 14 through 17. And it's funny. Sometimes I'll write down the verse and hey, I'll come back to that. And then I'm like, what does it say? But I think this is the part where it just, encourages us to share the gospel and share our faith.
Yeah. Verse 14. How then will they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how are they to believe in him of whom they have never even heard? And how are they to hear without someone preaching? And how are they to preach unless they are sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who preach the good news. But they have not all obeyed the gospel. For Isaiah says, Lord, who has believed what he has heard from us? So faith comes from hearing, and hearing through the word of Christ.
Man, let's go. So we have a job to do, right?
Yep.
So we're partnering we're not saving people, but we are definitely taking the good news, people. I love how it says, how beautiful are the feet of the one who brings the good news.
That's cool.
I might not have good looking feet in the natural, but in the spiritual, I want my feet to be awesome.
Yeah.
All right. I want them pedicured up in the spiritual sense. How beautiful are the feet of those who bring the good news. How is somebody going to know about God? How is somebody going to know about what Jesus has done for them if we do not tell them?
Yep.
Let's go.
Yeah.
We got a job to do.
Yeah.
Should fire you up.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm saying.
The only way that someone can come to Christ is through the hearing of the word.
Yeah.
So who else to tell them about it than the believer? It's only us to do it.
Yeah.
So
let's go. Yeah. So there's a few takeaways for the believer to share their faith and to share about God with those who don't believe. So share this with somebody.
Yeah.
And we'll be back next time for our next conversation. And let's submit some questions in as we continue to create this podcast series and grow this platform. Right?
Awesome. Yeah. Throw some questions in. Thanks to everybody for watching.
Yes, sir.
Great job.
Man of the plan. There we go. Dap you up.
How long was that?
That was like 20 minutes.